Effective immediately. You're suspended pending investigation into financial irregularities. The words landed like stones in the conference room. My supervisor, Glenn, sat across from me, flanked by Diane from HR. Both wore expressions of practiced neutrality, but I caught the flicker of something else in Glenn's eyes. Satisfaction, maybe, or relief that this unpleasant task was nearly finished. I set down my coffee cup carefully, watching the dark liquid settle. Around us, the glass walls of the conference room offered a fishbowl view of the office. 50 curious faces pretended not to stare while obviously watching the drama unfold. "I understand," I said quietly. Diane pushed a folder across the table. Inside would be the standard documents. Suspension notice, investigation procedures, my rights during the process. I'd seen similar folders before, just never with my name on them. "We'll need your access badge, company laptop, and phone," Glenn continued. His voice carried that careful tone people use when they expect an emotional reaction. I nodded, already reaching for my bag. What they didn't know, what nobody in this building suspected, was that I'd been expecting this moment for exactly 3 weeks, ever since I'd discovered the emails that weren't meant for my eyes. My name is Juliet Crawford. I'm 42 years old, and until 30 seconds ago, I'd been the senior financial analyst at Pemberton Industries for 9 years. I'd helped this mid-sized manufacturing company navigate 2 recessions, 3 acquisitions, and countless budget crises. I'd trained half the accounting department, including the woman who was currently trying to destroy my career. Before this job, I'd spent 8 years at a Big Four accounting firm, earning my CPA and learning how money really moves through corporations. My husband Donovan always joked that I could spot financial irregularities the way other people spot typos. It was more than a skill. It was instinct. 3 months ago, Pemberton hired Cordelia Nash as a financial controller. She was 31, ambitious, and armed with an MBA from a prestigious university. She also had something I'd never possessed, the ability to charm executives effortlessly. Within weeks, she'd become Glenn's favorite. Within 2 months, she'd started positioning herself for my job. I'd noticed, of course, but noticing and proving are different things entirely. The trouble started small. A misplaced decimal point in a budget report I'd supposedly prepared. An email to a vendor with slightly incorrect payment terms sent from my account. Minor errors that could be explained as carelessness, except I'd never been careless with numbers. Then came the missing invoice approvals. Documents I'd definitely signed that vanished from the system. Discrepancies in expense reports that somehow pointed back to my department. Each incident was tiny, almost insignificant, but together they formed a pattern. I'd brought my concerns to Glenn initially, explaining that someone might have accessed my accounts. He'd been dismissive, suggesting I was stressed and making mistakes. Cordelia had been in the meeting too, her face arranged in sympathetic concern, while her eyes gleamed with something colder. That's when I knew for certain. She wasn't just incompetent or unlucky. She was building a case against me, piece by careful piece. The question was why, and more importantly, how could I prove it? I'd started documenting everything 4 weeks ago. Every login time, every document I touched, every email I sent. I installed monitoring software on my personal laptop at home, tracking my actual work against what appeared in the company systems. The discrepancies were stunning. Reports I'd never written appeared with my name attached. Emails I'd never sent showed up in my sent folder. Someone with serious technical skills was manipulating the system, and they were confident enough to be thorough. I'd also started staying late, watching who else worked after hours. Cordelia's office light burned bright most evenings. She'd arrive around 7, when the building was nearly empty, and work until 9 or 10. I'd slip out before she noticed me, but not before nodding the pattern. My personal phone buzzed in my pocket now. A text from Donovan. "How'd the morning meeting go?" I couldn't respond yet, not with Glenn and Diane watching. Instead, I handed over my company devices, keeping my expression neutral. Inside, my heart hammered with anticipation rather than fear. As I walked out of Pemberton Industries for what everyone assumed was the last time, I allowed myself a small smile. The security guard, Tom, gave me a sympathetic nod as he escorted me to my car. He'd always been kind, slipping me extra cookies from the break room when I worked late. "Sorry about this, Miss Crawford," he said quietly. "It's all right, Tom. Truth has a way of surfacing." In my car, I finally checked my phone properly. Along with Donovan's text were 3 messages from Leighton Park, my former colleague from the Big Four firm. She'd moved into corporate investigation work 5 years ago, specializing in financial fraud. I'd contacted her 2 weeks ago when my documentation reached critical mass. Her latest message was simple: "Got everything we need. Meeting at 4. I texted back confirmation, then called Donovan. He answered on the first ring. "They did it," I said. "Suspended me this morning." "You okay?" "Perfect, actually. Everything's going exactly as planned." His laugh was warm, familiar. "That's my Juliet. When do we celebrate?" "After the truth comes out. Should be interesting." Donovan and I had been married for 14 years. He taught high school mathematics and had the patience of a saint, which he'd needed plenty of during the past 3 months while I obsessed over Cordelia's schemes. He'd helped me organize my evidence, offering the logical perspective I sometimes lost when anger clouded my thinking. "Why is she doing this?" he'd asked one evening, reviewing my documented timeline. "My job, probably, or maybe she just doesn't like that I question her work." I'd paused, considering. "She makes mistakes, Dawn, real ones, not planted evidence, but she's charming enough that Glenn overlooks them. Easier to eliminate the person who notices than to fix the problems." Now, driving across town to meet Leighton, I reflected on how thoroughly Cordelia had underestimated me. She'd seen a middle-aged woman, comfortable in her position, unlikely to fight back aggressively. She'd calculated that a few planted errors would be enough to discredit me, clearing her path upward. What she hadn't calculated was that I'd spent my entire career following money trails and documenting financial irregularities. This was literally what I did best. Leighton's office occupied the 3rd floor of a modern building downtown. Her firm, Clarity Corporate Investigations, specialized in internal corporate fraud. When I'd first contacted her, I'd been uncertain whether my situation qualified as fraud or just office politics. "It's definitely fraud," she'd said after reviewing my initial evidence. "Unauthorized access to company systems, falsification of documents, identity theft in a corporate context. This goes way beyond politics." Now she greeted me with a firm handshake and knowing smile. "Ready to watch the dominoes fall?" "More than ready." Her conference room was set up with 3 large monitors, each displaying different aspects of the investigation she'd been conducting parallel to my documentation. The scope was breathtaking. "Your instincts were right," Leighton began, pulling up the first screen. "Cordelia Nash has been systematically manipulating Pemberton's financial systems for 3 months. But Juliet, it's bigger than just framing you." My stomach tightened. How much bigger? "She's been embezzling. Small amounts, carefully hidden. Your removal was necessary because you were the one person likely to catch her eventually." The evidence Leighton presented was damning and thorough. Cordelia had been siphoning money through fake vendor accounts, roughly $3,000 per week for 12 weeks. Not enough to trigger automatic alerts, but enough to total over $36,000. "She's smart," Leighton admitted. "The amounts are small, the vendors look legitimate at first glance, and she's been careful about timing. But she made 2 critical mistakes." "What mistakes?" "First, she underestimated you. Instead of lying low after framing you, she got confident, started taking slightly larger amounts. Second, she didn't realize Pemberton's systems log absolutely everything, including access times and IP addresses." Leighton pulled up another screen showing login records. "Every time she accessed your accounts to plant false evidence, the system recorded her IP address. Every fraudulent email sent from your account shows her digital fingerprints." I stared at the data, feeling vindication wash over me. How did you get access to Pemberton's systems? I didn't. You did, technically. You hired me as a private consultant to review financial irregularities. Perfectly legal. Here's what happens next, Leighton explained, shifting into business mode. I've prepared a comprehensive report documenting both the embezzlement and the frame job. It includes your evidence, my independent investigation, and expert analysis of the system manipulations. She handed me a bound document, easily 100 pages thick. This goes to 3 places simultaneously: Pemberton's CEO, their legal department, and the district attorney's office. The DA particularly because this crosses into criminal territory. When? I asked. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. That gives you today to prepare for the aftermath. By tomorrow afternoon, Pemberton will be in crisis mode. I flipped through the report, seeing months of work distilled into clear, irrefutable evidence. Each section was meticulously documented, cross-referenced, and verified. My own documentation formed the foundation, but Leighton had built an unassailable case on top of it. Cordelia will be arrested. Almost certainly. Wire fraud, identity theft, embezzlement. She's looking at serious charges. The weight of that settled over me. Despite everything she'd done, I felt a flicker of something like pity. Then I remembered her smug expression in Glenn's office, and the pity vanished. That evening, Donovan and I sat on our back porch, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink. I'd told him everything, showing him the full scope of what Leighton had uncovered. $36,000, he said, shaking his head. She threw away her career for $36,000 and tried to throw away mine to cover it up. He squeezed my hand. How are you feeling? I considered the question carefully. Validated, angry that it went this far, grateful I trusted my instincts. I paused, worried about what comes next. Worried how? Pemberton might not want me back after this. The company's going to be embarrassed they didn't catch this themselves. Glenn particularly, since he ignored my warnings. Then another company will be lucky to have you, Donovan said firmly. Juliet, you just caught a thief and proved your innocence simultaneously. That's not a liability, that's an asset. He was right, of course, but the uncertainty still gnawed at me. I'd built 9 years at Pemberton. I'd mentored people, developed systems, contributed to genuine growth. Walking away would hurt, even if vindication came with it. I didn't sleep well that night. My mind kept replaying scenarios, imagining how different people would react when Leighton's report landed. Glenn's shock, or perhaps defensiveness. The CEO's anger at being blindsided by fraud under his watch. Cordelia's face when she realized her careful scheme had unraveled completely. By 6 a.m., I'd given up on sleep entirely. I made coffee and sat at my kitchen table with my laptop, reviewing my own documentation one final time. Everything was there. Every discrepancy, every suspicious timestamp, every piece of evidence that had told me something was deeply wrong. At 8:30, my phone rang. Leighton. Reports are being delivered now, she said. Courier service, requiring signature at all 3 locations. By 9:15, everyone will be reading. Okay. Juliet, prepare yourself. Today is going to be intense. You'll likely get calls from Pemberton's legal team, possibly the DA's office, definitely from Glenn and probably the CEO. Don't answer any calls without me present, understand? Understood. I'll be at your house by 10. Until then, stay calm and don't engage with anyone from Pemberton. The first call came at 9:47. Glenn's number flashed on my screen. I let it go to voicemail, my hands shaking slightly. 3 more calls followed in quick succession. Glenn again, then a number I didn't recognize, then Pemberton's main line. Donovan sat beside me, his presence steady and calm. You've got this, he murmured. At 10:03, Leighton arrived, looking professionally intense in a dark suit. She'd barely settled at our dining table when my phone rang again. This time, it was Walter Pemberton himself, the company's CEO. Leighton nodded, and I answered, putting it on speaker. Miss Crawford, Walter's voice was tight, controlled. "I've just finished reading a very disturbing report. Mr. Pemberton, I need you to come in immediately. We need to discuss this situation." Leighton interjected smoothly. "Mr. Pemberton, this is Leighton Park, corporate investigator. I'd advise that any meetings include legal counsel for both parties, given the circumstances." A pause. "Miss Park, your report is extremely detailed and extremely serious." "It's accurate, Mr. Pemberton. Every claim is documented and verified." The meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. at Pemberton's headquarters. Leighton, myself, and a lawyer she'd brought in would face Walter Pemberton, his legal team, and whatever remained of his executive staff after the morning's revelations. "What about Cordelia?" I asked Leighton as we prepared. "Police are with her now. The DA moved fast once they saw the evidence. She's likely being processed as we speak." The reality of that hit me hard. A woman I'd worked alongside for 3 months was being arrested. Despite everything, despite the sabotage and lies, I felt the gravity of that consequence. "She made her choices," Leighton said, reading my expression. "You documented the truth. That's not vindictive, Juliet. That's just being thorough." We arrived at Pemberton at 1:45. The lobby felt different somehow, the familiar space charged with tension. Tom, the security guard's eyes widened when he saw me. "Miss Crawford," he said quietly, "there's been quite a commotion this morning." "I imagine so." He glanced around, then leaned closer. "For what it's worth, most of us never believed you did anything wrong." The unexpected support nearly broke my composure. The conference room was crowded. Walter Pemberton sat at the head of the table, looking older than I remembered. His legal counsel, a sharp-eyed woman named Beverly, sat to his right. Glenn was conspicuously absent. "Miss Crawford," Walter began once we'd settled. "First, I owe you an apology, a significant one. The company failed you." I nodded, not trusting my voice yet. "Second, I need to understand how this happened under our watch. Your report indicates you raised concerns to your supervisor multiple times." 3 times specifically, I confirmed. Glenn dismissed each one, suggesting I was making careless errors. Walter's jaw tightened. "Glenn is currently on administrative leave while we review his role in this situation. At minimum, he showed poor judgment in ignoring your warnings." Beverly took over. "Miss Crawford, the company would like to discuss your return. Obviously, your suspension is lifted immediately, but we'd like to propose something beyond simply reinstating your previous position." Leighton shifted beside me, her attention sharp. "We're listening." Beverly slid a folder across the table. "We're creating a new position, Director of Financial Compliance and Internal Controls. It would report directly to Mr. Pemberton and the board. The role would involve implementing stronger oversight systems to prevent situations like this from occurring again." I opened the folder, scanning the proposal. The salary was substantially higher than my previous position. The authority was significant, with the ability to audit any department and direct access to leadership. "You want me to build safeguards," I said slowly. "We want you to ensure this never happens again," Walter corrected. "Juliet, you demonstrated exactly the kind of diligence and integrity we need. You noticed problems, documented them thoroughly, and pursued the truth even when it cost you professionally. That's the mindset we should have been encouraging all along." Leighton caught my eye, her expression carefully neutral. The decision was mine. "I need time to consider this," I said finally. "It's been an overwhelming few weeks." "Of course, take a week. The position will be waiting if you want it." After the meeting, Leighton and I sat in her car in Pemberton's parking lot. The late afternoon sun slanted through the windshield, warming the interior. "What are you thinking?" she asked. "That it's a good offer, more than fair, really. But I'm not sure I can work for a company that suspended me so easily. That ignored my warnings and sided with someone charming over someone competent." Leighton nodded. "That's valid, though Walter seems genuine about making changes." "He does, and Glenn being on leave suggests they're taking this seriously. I rubbed my temples, feeling the tension of the day. I just don't know if I can trust them again. You don't have to decide now. Take the week he offered. See how you feel once the adrenaline wears off. She was right, of course, but beneath the exhaustion and uncertainty, I felt something else stirring. Not just vindication, but possibility. The chance to reshape something broken into something stronger. That evening, the local news ran a story about Cordelia's arrest. They didn't name Pemberton Industries specifically, but anyone in our industry would recognize the details. Financial controller arrested for embezzlement and fraud was the headline, accompanied by Cordelia's professional headshot. Donovan and I watched in silence. Seeing her face on the news made everything feel suddenly, startlingly real. She probably thought she was clever, Donovan said quietly. Small amounts, careful planning, she just didn't account for you being more clever. I wasn't trying to be clever, I was just paying attention. That's what made the difference. My phone had been buzzing all afternoon with messages from colleagues at Pemberton. Some offered congratulations, others apologies for doubting me. A few expressed shock at Cordelia's arrest, unable to reconcile the charming colleague they knew with the criminal described in news reports. One message caught my attention. It was from April, a junior analyst I'd mentored. You taught me to always verify the numbers. I'll never forget that lesson now. Thank you for showing us what integrity looks like. Over the next few days, more details emerged. Cordelia had been denied bail, her attorney arguing that the evidence against her was circumstantial. The DA's response had been swift and brutal, presenting Leighton's report as Exhibit A. The judge had taken less than an hour to deny bail, citing the sophistication of the fraud and flight risk. Glenn, meanwhile, had been quietly terminated. Pemberton's internal investigation revealed he'd missed numerous red flags beyond just my warnings. He'd approved several of the fake vendor accounts without proper verification, too focused on Cordelia's charm to notice the irregularities. I felt no satisfaction in his firing. Glenn had been a mediocre manager, not a malicious one. His mistake was weakness, not wickedness. But in a company trying to rebuild trust, weakness was luxury they couldn't afford. Leighton called on day 4 of my deliberation week. The DA wants to meet with you. They're building their case against Cordelia and want your testimony about the frame job aspect. When? Tomorrow, if you're available. I'll be there with you. The district attorney's office was less intimidating than I'd expected. The prosecutor, a woman named Colleen Bennett, was straightforward and professional. She'd clearly studied Leighton's report thoroughly. Miss Crawford, your documentation is exceptional, she said, spreading printouts across the conference table. This level of detail makes prosecution significantly easier. I'm an accountant. Documentation is what I do. Well, it's about to convict a criminal. Colleen pulled up a timeline on her laptop. Here's what we believe happened. Cordelia Nash started embezzling approximately 3 months ago. 4 weeks later, you began noticing discrepancies. Rather than stop the embezzlement, she decided to frame you instead, believing your removal would eliminate the threat. She was probably right, I admitted. If she'd succeeded, if I'd been fired, no one else would have noticed for months. Except you didn't get fired. You got suspended, which gave you time to prove your innocence and expose her crimes simultaneously. Colleen smiled grimly. She made a critical error in underestimating you. The prosecution's case was strong, almost overwhelming. Between Leighton's investigation and my documentation, they had digital evidence, financial records, and a clear pattern of behavior. Cordelia's defense attorney had already approached them about a plea deal. She'll likely get 3 to 5 years, Colleen explained. First offense, she'll express remorse, claim stress, or personal problems. The judge might be lenient. That seems light for $36,000 and trying to destroy someone's career, Donovan said. We were having dinner that evening, discussing the DA meeting. White-collar crime always gets lighter sentences, I said, but the conviction will follow her forever. No company will hire her for financial work again. Is that enough? Justice, I mean. I considered the question. Was justice about punishment or consequence? Cordelia would serve time, lose her career, and carry a felony conviction permanently. Her attempt to sabotage me had instead sabotaged her entire future. Yes, I said finally, it's enough. On the 7th day, I called Walter Pemberton and accepted the position. Not because I'd fully forgiven the company's failures, but because Donovan had said something that resonated. You can spend energy being angry about what happened, or spend energy making sure it never happens again. Creating the Director of Financial Compliance position would let me reshape Pemberton's culture. I could implement real safeguards, train people to catch red flags, and build systems that valued diligence over charm. My first day in the new role felt surreal. I had an actual office now, with walls and a door on the executive floor. My assistant, a sharp, recent college graduate named Quinn, greeted me with genuine enthusiasm. Miss Crawford, I've been following your case. What you did was incredible. I just documented what I saw. Exactly. You trusted yourself when everyone doubted you. That takes courage. Setting up the office took most of the morning. By afternoon, I was reviewing Pemberton's existing financial controls, finding gaps large enough to drive trucks through. The changes I implemented came swiftly. First, mandatory dual authorization for all new vendor accounts. Second, automated alerts for unusual transaction patterns. Third, regular rotation of financial responsibilities to prevent any one person from controlling processes too long. But the most important change was cultural. I started holding weekly training sessions on recognizing financial irregularities, not just for the accounting department, but for managers across the company. Most fraud isn't sophisticated, I explained in the first session. It's ordinary people making bad choices and hopping no one notices. Your job is to notice. I shared my own experience candidly, including how Glenn had dismissed my concerns. If something feels wrong, document it. Keep records. Trust your instincts, but verify everything. The response was overwhelmingly positive. People wanted to learn. They'd been shaken by Cordelia's actions and were hungry for ways to prevent similar situations. April, my former mentee, approached me after one session. This should have been standard from the beginning. You're right, but better late than never. 3 months into my new role, Cordelia's trial began. I was called to testify about the sabotage attempts and the evidence I'd collected. Walking into the courtroom felt surreal, seeing Cordelia in business attire at the defense table, her expression carefully blank. My testimony took 4 hours, walking the jury through the timeline of irregularities, my documentation process, and the moment I realized I was being framed. The prosecutor displayed my evidence on large screens, making the manipulation undeniable. Cordelia's attorney tried to suggest I'd fabricated evidence out of professional jealousy. Leighton's testimony destroyed that theory, presenting the independent investigation that confirmed every detail. The trial lasted 2 weeks. The jury deliberated for 6 hours before returning with guilty verdicts on all counts. Cordelia's expression crumbled as the verdicts were read, reality finally breaking through her composure. The judge sentenced her to 4 years, with eligibility for parole after 2. As she was led away, she looked at me once, her eyes filled with something between regret and resentment. 6 months after my suspension, Pemberton Industries held a company-wide meeting. Walter Pemberton stood at the front, discussing the changes implemented since the Cordelia Nash incident. We failed one of our best employees, he said bluntly. We ignored warnings, we valued charm over competence, and we nearly lost someone invaluable. That failure has reshaped how this company operates. He gestured to me. Juliet Crawford showed us what integrity looks like. She noticed problems, documented them thoroughly, and pursued truth even when it cost her professionally. The systems she's built ensure we'll never make these mistakes again. The applause was genuine and sustained. Colleagues I'd worked with for years stood, their respect visible. Even people who doubted me during the suspension now understood what had really happened. After the meeting, Glenn approached me. He'd been rehired in a non-supervisory role, demoted but not destroyed. "I owe you an apology," he said quietly. "I should have listened." "Yes, you should have. For what it's worth, I'm learning from this. We all are." A year after Cordelia tried to sabotage me, I sat in my office reviewing the quarterly audit report. 0 irregularities, 0 red flags. The systems worked. Quinn knocked on my door. "Miss Crawford, there's someone here to see you, a job applicant asking for advice." I looked up curious. "Send them in." A young woman entered, nervous but determined. "Miss Crawford, my name is Piper. I'm in a situation at my current job and I heard you might understand. I think someone's setting me up." I gestured to the chair across from my desk, already reaching for a notepad. "Tell me everything," I said, "and start documenting now, today. Every detail matters." As Piper began her story, I felt purpose settle around me like a familiar coat. This was why I'd accepted Walter's offer. Not just to prevent fraud at Pemberton, but to help others navigate the same treacherous waters I'd survived. Cordelia had tried to sabotage me, thinking I was an easy target. Instead, she'd accidentally created something stronger, a system designed to catch people like her, and a person dedicated to helping others defend themselves. Bad idea indeed. Kindly subscribe to our channel, Revenge with Dorothea, for more stories. Bye for now.